The decision for the new director role came down to a single vote, and Elena cast hers for Julian. Julian was her ex-boyfriend. When Julian had joined the firm a month prior, the office rumor mill immediately started churning out stories that they were getting back together. I asked Elena plainly why she had voted for him. She just looked at me, raising an eyebrow, and replied in a casual tone that he was simply more qualified than I was. I felt a sharp sting of humiliation. I reminded her that I was her boyfriend while he was just an ex. She told me she didn't play favorites. She said that even though we were in a relationship, this was a place of business, and everything was about merit. Without hesitating for even a second, I broke up with her right then and there and handed in my resignation. Later, sitting on a plane flying out of New York, I looked at my phone and saw a long string of missed calls from Elena. The gossip about Elena had been the main subject of conversation in the company break room for weeks. I used to stand off to the side, pretending to be busy while listening to my coworkers describe the rumors in great detail. I heard people say she wasn't over him. People claimed to have the inside scoop that the boss and her old flame were definitely rekindling things. Hearing this, I thought to myself that this is exactly how false narratives get built. Elena and I had been dating for 2 years, but we had never made it public. We had been sleeping in the same bed just the night before. How could she possibly be getting back together with her ex? I grabbed a coffee and walked back to my desk. Once I sat down, Toby was still talking endlessly about Elena and her ex-boyfriend. He said he thought the guy's name was Julian and that he was starting at the company that month. He asked if that wasn't crazy. When I heard the name, I froze for a moment. A year ago, Elena had had too much to drink, and a few words had slipped out. In a rough voice, she had called out a name I didn't recognize. Toby nudged me and asked what I thought, wondering if Elena and Julian would get back together. My head was spinning. I suddenly realized that the name Elena had mumbled when she was drunk a year ago was Julian. The muffled sound from my memory became crystal clear. I shook my head and told him I wasn't sure. I forced my attention back to my work. When it was finally time to clock out, Elena was leaving at the same time. Our eyes met for a second. Her look was as cold and distant as it always was at work. At the office, we always acted like we were total strangers. None of our coworkers ever suspected a thing. We squeezed into the same elevator. In that small space, the same person I had spent the night with could turn into a total stranger the very next day. When we first started dating, I would see her blush, and her heart would race in crowded places, but she always managed to keep a cool and composed mask. The elevator reached the ground floor, and Elena walked out without a second glance. Whenever people were around, we never said a single word to each other. She didn't hesitate, just walked straight ahead. In that moment, I suddenly felt a massive distance between us. Toby shook my arm and said he was dying to know what kind of guy it took to land a woman like Elena. I just smiled without saying anything. He told me to hurry up or we would miss the subway. He snapped out of his trance and pulled me into a run. The day I actually met Julian, he wasn't what I had imagined. He wasn't some aggressive alpha type. He was polite and spoke well, greeting everyone with a smile. He said he was looking forward to working with everyone and hoped we would show him the ropes. After speaking, Julian gave a slight nod. Our eyes met. His look was clear, almost completely friendly. The office quieted down, and everyone got back to work. Then Elena's assistant called Julian away. After he left, the group chat immediately blew up. People were asking if Elena was really protecting him like that. They said the guy just got here and he had already been called into her office. They wondered if this was her way of putting our department in its place. After reading the messages, I was about to put my phone away when I got another notification. I went to her office door. Elena was sitting in her chair, legs crossed, focused on the documents in front of her. She told me there was a promotion opportunity coming up on the 1st of the next month. The evaluation would be based on a new project proposal. I nodded. Then she said the candidates were me and Julian. When she said his name, I tried to catch any sign of emotion on her face, but it was completely blank. On the way back to my desk, I received the project brief from Mrs. Higgins, the assistant. Julian reached out and added me on social media. He even started a conversation. He said Elena told him about the promotion and noted that I was his competition. He said he had seen some of my past proposals and thought they were impressive. A small smile touched my lips. I said thanks. He extended a hand, the corners of his eyes crinkling in a way that seemed warm and harmless. He said it was great to have me as a colleague. I said the same to him. Maybe he knew about me and Elena. For this promotion, I pulled a few all-nighters. I was working until dawn almost every night. Elena appeared behind me without a sound. Her cool voice suddenly broke the silence, asking if I was ever going to sleep. I let out a soft yawn and said I would in a minute. A question popped into my head, and I turned to ask her. I asked if she was going to pull some strings for me. Her expression suddenly turned serious, and she removed her hand from my shoulder. She looked up at me, her eyes dark. She began to explain that the company's review process has always been impartial. I knew what she meant. The answer was no. A small part of me was actually relieved. At least it would be a fair fight between me and Julian. I went back to working on the proposal while she stared intently at her computer, quickly handling work messages. During a break from the project, I scrolled through my social feed to relax. Judging by Julian's posts, he seemed like a really sunny, optimistic guy. He often shared videos of cats and dogs and just random daily complaints. Maybe I was only paying attention to him because he and Elena used to be a thing. It seemed Julian was paying attention to me, too. He liked one of my posts from a year ago, then he quickly unliked it. I looked up and met Elena's eyes. Her gaze was as deep and calm as ever. For a second, I was lost in thought. The next morning at work, Julian and I ran into each other at the elevator. We exchanged smiles but didn't say anything. A strange tension hung in the air. He just radiated this boundless energy. Toby whispered in my ear that he got it now. Elena was into that energetic, sunshine boy type. He said it wasn't like me. He noted we were the same age, but ever since I started this soul-crushing job, I felt like I had aged 10 years and skipped a whole decade of my life. I often saw Elena and Julian walking together at the office. The first time I ran into them head-on was in the elevator lobby. Just the two of them were standing in the small, enclosed space. Elena's tall figure was leaning against the elevator wall, while Julian held a stack of files. Seeing them, I paused, hesitating to get in. A sour feeling rose in my throat. Julian smiled and waved me over, telling me to come on in. Elena looked at me without a word. Her expression was calm, like she was looking at a stranger. I could feel a subtle hostility from Julian. It felt like he was here with a purpose. Right then, I desperately wanted to ask her if I was even her boyfriend. Finally, Elena's deep voice cut through the silence, asking if I wasn't getting in. Inside the elevator, Julian chatted freely with Elena. I just stood off to the side, listening. It felt like he was marking his territory right in front of me. Back at my desk, Toby walked up to me. He said he just saw Elena and Julian in the elevator lobby and asked if I thought they were secretly making out or something. He joked about them doing inappropriate stuff. I slowly turned my head and gave him a faint smile. I told him he needed to throw away those romance novels. I said if she knew he was gossiping about her like that, she would probably fire him first. Toby muttered under his breath, asking if she was really that petty. He said a guy can just imagine things. When Julian came back, he was followed by a few delivery guys. It was treats for the department from Elena. He said everyone had been working so hard. The group chat exploded. Everyone's eyes were glued to Julian, full of gossip. They said it looked like we were about to have a first gentleman of the company. They joked that the future Mr. Ross was bringing us snacks. They asked if this was the perk of having the boss's old flame in the department. Someone noted the desserts weren't cheap, probably $50 a pop. I just saw Elena and Julian on the same elevator, and it was just the two of them. Julian handed me a dessert personally. I said thanks quietly. That evening, it started to rain. I was about to text Elena to tell her it was raining, and that I wanted to go home with her. Then I looked up and saw two figures standing in the downpour. Elena, elegant and tall, was holding an umbrella. She was tilting it toward Julian. A wave of bitterness washed over me. I looked down and deleted the message. Soon, a picture of Elena and Julian walking side by side in the rain was posted in the group chat. People commented on how atmospheric it was. The chat immediately blew up again. It felt like a tiny, sharp needle had pricked my heart. The black car sped away. The taxi I had called arrived. I got home before Elena did. The ends of her hair were a little damp, and her left shoulder was soaked. I glanced at her, then looked away. She opened her mouth to ask what I had sent her just now. Taking a small sip of water, I shook my head and said it was nothing, that I sent it by mistake. She came out of the shower wearing only a bathrobe. The belt was tied loosely at her waist, showing her slim figure. A faint warmth radiated from her as she got closer. Her cool fingers touched my arm. I took a step back. I said I just remembered I hadn't finished my proposal and was going to the study. The desire in her eyes slowly faded, but the corners of her eyes still curved up. Our proposals were to be emailed privately to the manager. The manager would then send them to the various department heads for review. A final vote would decide the winner. We could choose to be anonymous or public. I knew this company. I had worked here for 3 years. I was confident I would get the promotion. Until the result landed in my inbox. It read, "Mr. Davis, we regret to inform you that you were not selected for the promotion. Please do not be discouraged. Thank you for your 3 years of support for Ross Corp." Reading those words, my mind went completely blank. In my 3 years at the company, I had gone from a fumbling rookie to someone who could handle any task with ease. My 3 years meant less than his 1 month. The moment I saw that message, my nose started to burn. I couldn't stop my eyes from filling up. I quickly glanced around, then wiped the tears away. There were times during my relationship with Elena when I had hit a wall at work and just wanted to hold her. To let it all out in her arms. I knew it wouldn't solve anything, but I just wanted to vent, to feel sorry for myself. I had seen Julian's presentation. He had sent it to me himself. He asked me for feedback. I pointed out that it didn't fit the theme or the company philosophy. Julian was definitely skilled, but he had only been here for a month. In terms of experience, he shouldn't have been ranked above me. I resisted the urge to storm into Elena's office. I waited until I got home. The news had already spread through the group chat. People said they were sure I had this promotion in the bag. They couldn't believe I lost to Julian. Rumor had it the deciding vote came from Elena herself. When I saw that message, my eyes ached with the urge to cry. Toby sent me a message to comfort me. He said even if Julian is going to be the boss's husband, he can't just steal someone's job like that. He asked why, if Julian is already the future Mr. Ross, they didn't just parachute him into the director role. He asked why they made me his competition, calling it messed up. I wiped my tears away and replied with a smile that I was fine. Then Elena walked through the door. The tears started streaming down my face again. She had seen every single late night I had pulled for that proposal. When she had gotten up in the middle of the night, I was still in the study. My voice trembled, thick with emotion, as I asked her why she didn't vote for me. She looked at me, her eyes calm, and said it was because his proposal was better than mine. The ache in my chest was unbearable. I said, "But Elena, he's your ex-boyfriend." "Hein? I'm your boyfriend." Her eyes were dark and unreadable. She enunciated each word, her tone flat, telling me that because he was more qualified than I was, she voted for him. She said she didn't play favorites. She repeated that we may be in a relationship, but the workplace is all about merit. I stared at her. Our eyes met, and I realized that this woman I had shared a bed with for 2 years had always been a stranger. I told her that she had never liked me, not even a little bit. The rumors about her and Julian were circulating around the office with a life of their own. I took a deep breath, trying my best to control my emotions, and told her let's break up. Elena's usually unflappable expression suddenly showed a flicker of fear. She grabbed my arm and told me to calm down. I stormed out of the apartment. Elena called me many times. I declined every call. The next day I ran into Elena and Julian again while waiting for the elevator. The rumors about them were already running wild at the office. I stood outside the elevator looking at them. Julian smiled and greeted me by name. The elevator next to theirs opened, and I turned and walked into it. Elena rushed out. By the time she did, the doors were closing, leaving only a thin gap. I smiled at her. Elena's brow furrowed. By the time I got to my desk, Elena had followed me in. Her body was tense. She stood in front of my desk for a long time without moving. I stood up and asked if I could help her, addressing her formally as Miss Ross. Her eyes were fixed on me. She told me to come to her office. I answered quietly, "Okay." She took a few steps, then stopped and looked back, asking if I was coming. I didn't want to be alone with her, and I didn't want to be in the same elevator with her. I forced a smile and said, "After you, Miss Ross." She seemed taken aback for a moment before turning and leaving. A little while later, she told me very seriously that Julian's proposal was better than mine in every way, from design to creativity. She said I should accept defeat gracefully. I nodded and said I understood. But what hurt was her blurry relationship with her ex. That lack of boundaries made me feel insecure. Everyone was saying she was trying to get back together with Julian. A bitter feeling rose in my chest. I told her if there was nothing else, I would be going. Her breath hitched. She looked like she wanted to say something, but closed her mouth. Finally, a few words escaped. "Caleb, he is talented." I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. Walking past Mrs. Higgins's office, I heard them discussing Julian's proposal. I stopped in my tracks. They said Julian's proposal really was good. The more I listened, the more familiar it sounded. Julian's proposal was identical to my first draft. Even the general PowerPoint template was the same. A different image flashed through my mind. Julian stole my proposal. I turned around and went back to Elena's office. I requested a review of the security footage and a reevaluation. I pulled out my initial draft and told her Julian stole my design proposal. A faint, disbelieving smile played on Elena's lips. Her long, narrow eyes looked at me, tinged with a slight disappointment. She shook her head gently. Her tone was indifferent as she told me I lost. She said that was it. She told me not to be emotional and not to resort to making baseless accusations against him. I laughed a little, angry, and asked if she was saying she thought I was framing him. Elena didn't say anything, but her expression gave me the answer. I felt a chill run through me as I walked back to my desk. The office air conditioning made me feel colder and colder. My mind went blank as I listened to my colleagues gossiping. I heard them say Elena and Julian started a business together back in the day and really went through thick and thin. They said that must be why she trusts him so much. Everything Elena did today told me one thing. She trusted Julian. I started looking for apartments online. During my break, I scheduled a few viewings with an agent. I found a place quickly. When I got back to the office that afternoon, Toby told me Elena had been looking for me. I ignored it. Until it was almost time to leave, Elena was standing silently in front of my desk. I had been staring blankly at a job offer on my computer. The woman's tall figure blocked some of the light. I slowly looked up. I watched her with suspicion. I asked her what it was. She read my lips. She was mouthing the words, "Taking you home." I found it slightly amusing. In the 2 years we had been dating, this was the first time she was taking me home from work. And only because we were fighting. But we had already broken up. I needed to make that clear. Since we were broken up, I wanted even less for any colleagues to know about our relationship. We got together in secret. We could break up in secret. I looked around furtively before slipping into her car. She frowned and asked if I had just robbed a bank. I quickly shut the car door and said no, I was just afraid someone might see us together and get the wrong idea. Her gaze sharpened. Her voice was crisp and cold as she reminded me she was my girlfriend. "Girlfriend," I repeated. I smiled and replied that we broke up yesterday and asked if she forgot. I offered to remind her again. After a moment of silence, she told me not to be like this. A faint smile played on her lips, as if she didn't believe I was serious. I looked into her eyes and said earnestly that I wasn't playing. I went back to the apartment with her. Just as I started packing my things, Elena's phone rang. Her eyes fell on me. I was kneeling on the floor and noticed her stare. I looked up. Her expression was a mix of worry and hesitation. After she hung up, she said she had to go out for a bit. With her gone, I breathed a sigh of relief. I slowly packed my clothes and personal documents. Looking around, I noticed the apartment's originally cool gray decor was now dotted with cheerful new items, like the plants I kept on the balcony. Lots of small, scattered things, but I only took my clothes and documents. The rest wasn't important. I could buy new things. Toby messaged me. "Party, now. Here's the address." After I finished packing, I arranged for movers to take my luggage to my new rental. I took a cab to the address Toby sent. It was a newly opened bar. It wasn't seedy, but it was lively. There was even a pool party going on outside. Colleagues from a few other departments were there. Our department got along pretty well. There wasn't much backstabbing. The atmosphere was buzzing. Toby suddenly leaned in close and exclaimed, asking if that wasn't Elena. He said, "Here comes our hero to save the day." His voice was a bit loud, and our colleagues all looked up, searching for Elena. Someone asked where. Toby pointed at the bar. I followed his gaze. Elena had her back to us, looking up at Julian and gently patting his back. She whispered that it was okay. A colleague said excitedly to take a picture. They said they told us Elena and Julian were getting back together. They pointed out she was fighting for him. Toby sighed and said he had been at this company for 3 years, and this was the first time he had ever seen this side of her, getting into a fight for her boyfriend. My heart trembled. Just as Elena looked up, her eyes met mine. Her pupils were dark. The moment our gazes locked, her expression hardened. Panic flickered in her usually indifferent eyes. I gave her a small, tight-lipped smile. We weren't far from each other, but a crowd of people stood between us. She tried to walk toward me. She pushed her way through the crowd. Her eyes were locked on me. The crowd was dense, and it took her a while to move. Toby and I turned and left. She looked panicked. Back at my rental, I opened my laptop and replied to the job offer in my email, saying I accepted. I received a new email almost immediately welcoming me to the team. Before I went to sleep, the group chat blew up again. They told everyone to check out Julian's latest post. They said they really are back together and the old flame is rekindled. They noted that Elena's type is the gentle, harmless, warm-hearted guy. So, Julian's social feed had a post about Elena in college. An 18-year-old Elena running all over the city on a snowy night to buy him his favorite cake for New Year's. A 19-year-old Elena when he was bent over in pain from acute gastroenteritis, shedding all her rich girl airs to personally cook him porridge, feed him medicine, and stay up all night to care for him. A 20-year-old Elena skipping class for Julian. A 21-year-old Elena willing to give up her position as heir to start a business for Julian. But Elena's family never accepted Julian, and Julian couldn't resist the temptation of their money, taking it and leaving Elena behind. In my 2 years with Elena, I never even got the title of public boyfriend. She had introduced Julian to everyone. They all knew she had loved him. I closed out of Julian's social media. A mechanical ringing started over and over. A call from Elena. I declined, but she called right back. I resisted the urge to block her since she was still technically my boss. I answered the phone. Her voice was sharp, tinged with a slight urgency. She said I wasn't home and my closet was empty. She said she didn't recall any work trips for me lately. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm. I told her I moved my clothes out because I moved out. Elena's voice trembled slightly as she asked about my other things. I said I didn't need them, and she could just throw them all out. Hearing that, Elena's heart started to race with a strange sense of unease. My words, "I moved out," sent a tremor through her. When she had gotten home and seen that all of my things were still in their usual places, she had felt a momentary sense of relief. It wasn't until she couldn't find me and couldn't reach my phone that the panic set in. When she opened the closet and the nightstand and saw that my clothes and personal documents were gone, Elena panicked. I submitted my resignation letter. My last day would be in 1 month. My letter was in a stack of documents that Julian submitted. Elena signed them all with her head down without any hesitation or pause. During meetings, I would always watch her intently. My gaze used to be fiery. Elena could tell it was a look of affection and admiration. But in this meeting, I just kept my head down, looking at my notebook. I occasionally chatted with the colleague next to me. My eyes never once landed on her. When I did look up absent-mindedly, and our eyes met, there was no love in my gaze. It was like I was looking at a stranger. This was the first time Elena had ever lost focus during a meeting. I quickly looked away. There was no awkwardness, no intention of meeting her gaze. It was just an accidental glance. Elena stared at me for a long time. The employees below could sense her distraction and followed her gaze. They saw she was staring at me. There was a strange mix of loss, fear, and nervousness in Elena's eyes. Until Mrs. Higgins prompted her. Elena snapped back to reality. After the meeting, Toby slung an arm around my shoulder and whispered, asking why Elena was staring at me like that. I smiled and said he must have seen it wrong. I asked if Julian wasn't sitting right near us. Toby dismissed the thought and started pulling me back to the office. A voice called out from behind us. Caleb? I froze. I slowly turned around. Elena was standing there. Her lips parted slightly. She told me to come to her office. Toby's eyes went wide. I told him to go on ahead. In Elena's office, she stared at me without saying a word. Her gaze made my skin crawl. I asked her what it was. She asked if I was still angry because I didn't look at her at all during the meeting. She sounded almost hurt. I couldn't help but laugh. I asked what I would be angry about since we already broke up. I asked why I would be looking at her during a meeting, asking if she was performing a concert. She paused, then spoke with difficulty, saying that's not what she meant. I said if there was nothing else, I was going back to work, and turned to leave. Back at my desk, I got a text from Elena saying she would take me home later. I ignored it. I didn't think she would ever walk out of the company with me in broad daylight. Until it was time to leave. She actually showed up in our department. Her tall, straight figure was standing in front of my desk again. I was momentarily stunned when our eyes met those long, narrow, cool eyes. Her voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't quiet either, rising and falling with her soft breaths. She said, "Let's go home." A bad feeling washed over me. Several pairs of eyes landed on me, gossiping, curious, shocked. I frowned deeply. I whispered to her, asking if she was insane. Then, in a normal, calm voice, I told her Julian wasn't here. She raised an eyebrow, a new light in her eyes. It was almost a look of deep affection. She said she was here to pick up her boyfriend. She said she was here for me. Seeing the shocked expressions on everyone's faces, I forced a strained smile and told her we broke up. I never thought Elena would announce our relationship this way, but I didn't need it anymore. I walked quickly out of the office. Elena hurried after me. She grabbed my arm forcefully, pulling me around to face her. I shoved her away. I looked at her coldly and said her name. When I said her name, she stopped dead in her tracks. The coldness in my tone when I said her name was like a knife plunging straight into her chest. The furrow in Elena's brow deepened. I looked at the woman in front of me and felt exhausted. I asked her if playing with my feelings while having some ambiguous thing with Julian was fun for her. I controlled my emotions. Her brow was furrowed, her eyelashes trembling slightly. I continued, saying we broke up and I didn't want anything to do with her. I said I was leaving now. While she stood there frozen, I walked away without a second's hesitation. She followed me to the lobby of my new apartment building. Her face was frantic. She told me there was nothing going on between her and Julian. I told her the whole company was saying she and Julian were getting back together. I said I saw her get into a fight for him with my own eyes. I reminded her she pushed me out of a promotion to protect him and didn't believe he stole my proposal. She looked at me, explaining quickly in a low voice that I knew she would never cheat the system for anyone. She said she wouldn't give him the promotion just because he's her ex, and she wouldn't give me special treatment just because I'm her boyfriend. I curled my lip into a faint, sarcastic smile. I told her the entire company was gossiping about them getting back together. Satva, I said they were all saying she was chasing her ex. I told her that as her boyfriend, I had to listen to people talk about how perfect they were for each other every single day, and she had no idea how humiliating that felt. I said I was supposed to be her boyfriend. I noted she would even get into a public fight for him. I told her I was never upset that she voted for him. If I lost fair and square, I'd accept it. But she was biased. I listed her actions: holding an umbrella for him in the rain, taking him home, ordering afternoon tea for the department in her name, and having him handed out to boost his ego, and not believing he stole my idea. I told her that as a girlfriend, she failed. Elena's voice caught, her words trembling at the end. She said it was because that was his umbrella. She said she didn't go out of her way to take him home. He just left a file he needed in her car, and it wouldn't have been right to let him walk in the rain. She explained that for the afternoon tea, every department in the company got it that afternoon, and she had no idea he was using her name to pass it out. She said that day at the bar, she would have done the same for any employee of the company. She promised it wouldn't happen again. Her blurred boundaries allowed others to walk right in. Only with me were the lines crystal clear. In 2 years, no one had ever found out about us. The sky was getting dark, and a light rain began to fall. I quickly went inside and shut the gate. Through the bars, I said one word at a time that it was raining and she should go home. Toby sent me a message saying he couldn't believe Elena and I were actually dating. He said we kept that under wraps, and apologized for what he said before, claiming he had no idea. I couldn't blame anyone for misunderstanding. Even I thought Elena was head over heels in love with Julian. I told him it was okay, that we broke up and it was in the past. The next day at work, no one was talking about Elena and Julian anymore. Julian walked past me, his eyes bright. There was no malice, but I felt a sense of triumph from him. He was moving into the director's private office. The department was throwing him a promotion party. It was my last day, so I didn't go. At the end of the day, my contract was officially terminated. Toby said he didn't want to go either. I tried to convince him, saying Julian is his boss now, so he should probably make an appearance. I reminded him I had resigned, and today was my last day. After I got home, Toby messaged me saying Elena was there too, and she was looking for me. My flight was that night. I didn't spend another moment in New York. The second I left the office, I headed straight for the airport. Next stop, Kenya, Africa. I was going to see the Great Migration. When I landed, my phone was flooded with missed calls and messages from Elena asking where I was, telling me not to ignore her, and saying she was looking into the proposal issue. I joined a tour group, rested for a day, and then headed to the Masai Mara National Reserve in Kenya. There, I witnessed the migration of millions of wildebeest. Riding in an open-top SUV, I saw lions. The lions weren't afraid of people, and they weren't aggressive. I stayed in Kenya for 2 months, watching the savanna grasses slowly change color. The day I left, I mailed some souvenirs and a few photos to Toby. There was often no signal there, so I was barely online. I only posted to my social feed right before heading to my next destination. After I landed, Toby messaged me saying Elena saw my post and went to Kenya. By then, however, I had already landed in Indonesia. When I left Indonesia, I sent Toby more photos and a letter and made another post. Elena chased me to Indonesia too. By the time she arrived, I was already on a plane to Iceland. As the aurora rose, I stood on the vast land gazing up at the sky. A crack opened in the dark night, and a green light shone through, shimmering and shifting slowly. It was a perfect moment. When I turned around, I felt that perfection shatter. Elena was standing behind me, her eyes red. Moisture slowly welled up, her eyelashes trembling. Her shoulders were shaking slightly as tears streamed down her face. She whispered my name, her voice a little hoarse. There was a slight tremor in it. I smiled, completely over it. She said she missed me so much. After she said it, we both froze for a moment. She began again, telling me Julian, was fired. She said he was originally a transfer from a branch office, and she didn't specifically recruit him. She didn't even know he was the one transferring until he arrived. She confirmed he plagiarized my idea and said the company investigation proved it. On behalf of the company and on her own behalf, she sincerely invited me back. I refused without hesitation. I said no thanks. I didn't want to go back. Those memories weren't happy ones. I just wanted a fresh start. I looked up at the northern lights. After a moment of silence, she spoke again, apologizing and asking if I could give her another chance. I turned my head, my brow furrowed with annoyance. I told her she was really loud. I said I just wanted to watch the aurora in peace. Elena heard the impatience in my voice. My words sent a shock through her, making her chest ache. Her eyelashes trembled. When she first saw my back, she could tell at a glance that I had lost weight. The joy of having me back, of finding what she'd lost, flooded her heart. After my trip, I took some time off and then started at a new company. It was Elena's rival, a competitor on equal footing. 3 years ago, I never would have taken this job because I loved her, and I didn't want to be on the opposite side. I just wanted to be by her side. But from her, I learned that I should be seeking better opportunities for myself, not choosing her. Becoming Elena's competitor, now that was interesting. But at first, Elena didn't know I had started at the new company. She began pursuing me again. I turned her down every time. The last time I said a lot. I told her I thought loving her was painful. I said it was a mistake from the very beginning. I told her I never cared about whether I got the promotion or not. What I cared about was that she, my girlfriend, didn't have my back. I said she sided with him. I reminded her that when I told her I suspected he stole my proposal, her first reaction was that I was a sore loser. I told her she had no idea how humiliating it was as her boyfriend to listen to our colleagues talk about her and him getting back together. I said we were never official, so I couldn't even tell people it wasn't true. I had no standing. I told her I was in more pain then than she could possibly imagine. I said what she was feeling now is nothing. Elena closed her eyes, tears leaking from the corners. When she opened them, her eyelashes trembled. She apologized. She said she didn't make us public because she was scared I would also leave her for money. She was afraid I loved her for her money and power, not for her. But now she wished I did love her for those things. She said she realized that for me, she would be willing to give up all of it. I just smiled and didn't say anything. 3 years later, I saw Elena again. We stood face to face. I was representing my company in a negotiation with hers. I had become a better person, constantly improving, my career flourishing. Elena stared at me, lost in thought. A slow smile spread across her lips as she said my name. Someone asked if it was great that Miss Ross and Mr. Davis knew each other. I gave a faint smile and said I didn't believe we had met. Elena, who had been about to speak, closed her mouth. Looking at me, her eyes reddened. When we meet again, we are only strangers.